Knock, or we're all looking pretty silly right now.
There it is.
That's the knock. Good afternoon. This is the Moscow City Council Public Works Finance Committee of July the 14th, 2014. On my right is Dan Carscallon, council member. On my left, Art Betke, council member. To his left, City Supervisor Gary Riedner. The first item on the agenda will be the approval of the June 23, 2014 minutes.
I would move their approval.
I'll second them.
And I was not in attendance, so we will consider them approved anyway. Okay, Don Palmer. Item number 2, the disbursement report for 2014. Did you spend any money, Don?
Spent a little bit.
The disbursements report for the month of June was $2,160,398.78. We're in the height of the seasonal activity with part-time staff, so payroll's up more than during the winter months, and so it was $966,400. Professional services, $246,000. Sanitation, $241,100. Construction, $149,700. Supplies, $116,800. Vehicles, $85,500. That's 3 vehicles. Equipment's $83,200. Utilities, $72,500, and grants, $47,000. Of the professional services, there is the quarter payment for the 911 in that disbursement, so that's why that's up from there. And so that represents $2,008,600, or 93% of the month's expenditures.
Anything other than what you've already said that you'd like to point out?
I took some notes, but must have left out those downstairs. Anyway, the Moscow ball fields is of the construction projects is $46,560 of those monies, and some well work. I wanted to point that out. A lot of sidewalk projects going on, a lot of construction projects going on, so that's part of the construction monies.
Okay. Questions?
Oh, sounds like summertime.
Okay.
I guess we'll approve them.
You didn't sign that, didn't you? I don't know what the heck I signed earlier. You have a blue pen, Gary?
Right here.
Thanks.
No, only if he signs first.
Oh, toss it over here.
Who was that? Was that the Tim Brown rule? Or
It
what?
was.
Yeah.
Well, Don signs first. That
He
Tim's
doesn't
rule.
sign first, you can't press it.
Okay, while we're passing that around for signatures, Don, you've got item number 3, which is the third quarter financial report.
Yes, I
If you
do.
will move on into that.
Okay. The third quarter financial report represents 75% of the fiscal year through the June 30th. And the general fund is at 66% of revenues collected of the $12.7 million budget. And I would say that the majority of the property taxes have been paid, except we do receive another payment in late July, first week of August. So that money's still coming in, and that also will translate into the street fund, highway tax funds that we get in that fund as well. And then also the other thing that brought down the percentage down a bit is the fact that we accrue our revenues, and so therefore our sales, state shared revenues, liquor tax we have all 3 quarters, but sales tax monies are only 3 quarters or halfway through the year. So we get another payment here coming up this month on those quarters. So that's the reason that's down. Street fund, I mentioned the reason for the property tax.
Does that mean lag in remittance?
It is a lag.
Okay.
We get one payment at the end of July, this is through June, and then we get another one in October. So, and it's for the activity in the fourth quarter. So that's the street fund. The expenditures are 57%. They're just getting started with the projects, so those will occur in the street fund. Parks and Recreation, a lot of the costs there are related to professional service, referees, things of that nature. And so that really hasn't got going yet. But now that we're in the season of parks, I expect those costs to go up. It's kind of reflected in the payroll that I just submitted to you guys. So that's at 68% collected with a 55% expended, even though it's 75% of the year. It's seasonal. 1912 is kind of a scheduled thing with transfers, utilities, that sort of thing. That's the only thing that happens there. That's also at 58% collected with 57% expended. Arts, similar, 60% collected. Transit Center, 55% collected, 29% expended. Water, and that's a new fund. That's just the very first year we've got this thing going was this year, and so it's hard to track that operational cost yet until we get a full year under our belt. The water fund, 66% collected. I actually checked that. Sue ran this report on July 2nd, so she was speedier than the girls posting the utility bills, and we didn't quite get that. So the revenues are 75% collected through the year for base fees. Consumption-based system with the water, and so we get most of our water revenues in the months of July, August, September, and October. So we'll see that come on. Sewer is a lot more even keel with sewer revenues, so they're on track as well. 66% expended. Sanitation, the same. Fleet management revenue is 55% collected. That is a budget that's based on mostly capital. If you notice there, we delay some of those purchases till January, and as they get the orders in, I just reported on 4 vehicles today, or 3 vehicles today. So that's at 34% for capital. IS, same thing, 75% collected, and the capital purchases are pretty much 57%, and operational costs are right on track. The capital projects, we talked about that during the budget process. We got $20 million in miscellaneous capital projects, both revenues and expenditures. Notice that our grants and revenues have come in at $1.5 million. Our expenditures are at $924, except for one of the reasons that the expenses would be greater is the transfers in for water and sewer and sanitation. Total revenues citywide, $26 million. Total expenses citywide, $24 million. And the print version of this is much narrower in scope, but it's the same thing. I just went through the detail that council gets. Any questions?
Sounds like we're on track.
Sounds like we're better than on track. We're not taking in any money, and we're not spending any money. Time of year.
Yes,
Apparently.
basically the time of year.
All timing. Yeah, I'm betting we'll probably see that motor users next week, and
Yeah, I would think so.
maybe even the second half, or whichever, first or second, other half of the taxes.
Sure.
Is your revenue and expense for miscellaneous funds going to get any closer to budget?
No.
Okay.
And the reason for that is as we outline in the capital needs, we budget the accumulations as well as what we talked about, and so those revenues won't be, those revenues are there budgeted-wise, and the expenditures are there. We don't spend a lot of those. We, like water and sewer and sanitation are the 3 big ones. There's almost $18 million in those 3 projects alone, so, or enterprise funds. So no, to answer your question, not.
Okay. Anyone else?
Over to Don.
Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next item, item number 4, Kevin Lilly. We'll talk about the concept report for Mountain View Road Fairgrounds to 6th Street project. It looks like he has a movie, or not.
He's already got it loaded.
Good afternoon. We are at the point with the federal aid project for Mountain View from 6th to the fairgrounds where we need to get the concept approved. You have, in your packet, you have the presentation that I have that discusses the alternatives that were looked at. We originally applied for this grant in 2011. We applied for $1.65 million, which was our estimate at the time. And probably should just show you the project limits there. On the north end is 6th Street, and then the south is the bridge just north of White Avenue. And that'll be improved, I'm sorry, this is fuzzed, improved from the upper drawing to a 36-foot road section with curb and gutter sidewalk. There will be, we're proposing a roundabout at 6th Street and lighting improvements at the intersections, storm drain. That's about the size of that. We had a competitive process and we selected JUB for the design as a design engineer. And what we decided to do, because the scope was kind of hard to get a handle on, is to go ahead to this point and get a concept approved so we know exactly what we're going to pay them to work on from here out. We did have with these alternatives, we went to a public meeting at the fairgrounds last September and had a very good turnout. All the directly affected folks that live in the area were personally invited. The results of that are in the concept report. The current construction cost estimate has been increased to $2.58 million. It's quite a sizable increase. We had assumed when we applied for
It's more than quite sizable. Just for a little bit, you could call it doubled.
You could put in a lot of adjectives there. But when we applied for the project, we assumed that we could do it as we have done previous Mountain View projects, just notching on the sides and doing the widening. But part of the federal aid process requires the materials reports to show that you can get a 20-year life out of the roadway, and the subgrade soils in that particular stretch were so bad that what we're currently looking at is a 32-inch deep section, which is pretty unusual, but the subgrade soils are just wet clay, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that. We're going to have JUB as part of the final design process look at using geogrid reinforcement on that interface between the soil and the rock, and also rock cap, which is like a 3 to 4 inch rock, which ITD uses a lot of in these situations where they have very wet clay.
I believe what you found, but have we historically had more problems with the road in that section than the other sections?
I don't believe so, but it's all a matter of having to show with the lab tests, show the numbers that it will take enough cycles to get us 20 years of life, which that particular soil wasn't able to do. But we are going to have them look at some alternatives to try to skinny this up, but it doubled the cost of the excavation and the pavement, so that was quite a shock to all of us. LTAC has increased the amount that is programmed for construction. It's currently at $2.23 million, and our current estimate for construction only is 2.58, so we're getting very close.
Only?
Pardon me?
You said only?
Only, yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Million here, million there. Well, you know we're talking about real money.
You know what? Our match on that would be roughly $220,000.
Okay.
So we would like to proceed with the selected alternative. We'll run through these alternatives real quick. We always have to do the no build, which doesn't get us anything, but it's always an option. And then the next several do improve the roadway with all the same amenities, bike lanes, sidewalks, curb and gutters. The big difference I was mostly on Mountain View, the intersection of Mountain View and 6th. Alternative B would be to rebuild the road, just leaving it as two-way stop controlled at Mountain View. But again, it wouldn't improve the traffic flow, and it wouldn't reduce the amount of crashes. When we looked at the amount of accidents just at 6th and Mountain View, there were 14 in the last, from 2007 to 2012. So something needs to be done there. So that one doesn't meet the purpose and need in terms of improving traffic flow or safety. Alternative C we looked at was a signalized intersection. It's not the preferred because of the delays compared to a roundabout. There are more delays, and it's roughly the same cost. This is a picture of what that would look like with a signal. Alternative D was a roundabout with a west shift to avoid. There are 2 residential properties on the east and 2 commercial on the west. We settled on this as the preferred alternative because it does have a little less impact on the residential properties. And it does meet the objectives, reduces delays, and it's cost-effective, improves safety. And that's what the west shifted roundabout looks like. Just slightly shifted to the west.
Anybody driving this realize that is west shifted if they hadn't been told?
I don't think so. You're already going to be coming in and having to bend to get into the roundabout. I don't believe it'll be noticeable. Maybe a roundabout designer would know.
We'd hope.
Alternative E was pretty much centering that roundabout in the intersection, and is very similar to a little less right-of-way cost, but it does have more impact on some of the residential owners. So that's what the centered roundabout looks like. And so when we took this to the public, we had 68 comments submitted on the intersection itself of 6th and Mountain View, and 54 of those favored a roundabout. I know some of you were at the meeting. We had a good turnout.
You were pleased with your turnout?
Yes, very much. I think it was a matter of, or a result of the personal interaction that was made with every citizen that's directly in the area prior to the meeting. There were other folks interested, but we got a good turnout from the neighbors as well. So I don't know if that I need to go back through these. Well, you might look at these costs real quick. They're all pretty darn close, except for the two-way stop is a couple $100,000 less, but that is not currently cutting it.
Amazingly close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So from here, if you would approve the concept, we'll get a design agreement. We already have a rough scope of work, but once the concept is approved, we'll get that finalized for the remainder of the design, and we'll also finish the environmental clearance and acquire the right-of-way. Then we'll have a state local for construction, like you approved this morning for the Polk Street job. And there's the amount, current programmed funds is 2.23, and this is set for 2019, so we have a ways to go, but our goal is to get it designed, approved, and then submitted, and then once we get to 2019, we'd have to reevaluate the environmental document, which it should be maybe a 2-month process. It's fairly simple.
Is the environmental is part of the contract that will be negotiated with JUB for design?
Finishing that will be part of the new one. They already did a preliminary during this concept. I had a list of the tasks that were part of this. Was the geotechnical, the preliminary environmental, with archaeological, architectural, wetlands and wildlife assessments, and the traffic analysis, and preparation of the documents for ITD's process to get this get us this far through the concept approval. And then we had a sub-consultant for the public involvement part, which turned out to be very helpful.
The RFQ process under which you hired JUB for concept had a door in it to go ahead and contract with them for design?
Yes,
You
LTAC.
don't have to go out again?
No, LTAC has asserted that we don't need to do that again. We actually had it, we selected them for the whole process originally.
And you've been pleased with them so far?
I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the public hearing, I believe, questions were raised about, what about a roundabout at Joseph and Mountain View? That's the last I heard of that. What's transpired?
Yeah, well, we've asked them to look at that as a conceptual thing. Will it fit? But LTAC has already frowned a bit on that because it would add considerably more dollars to the project, and at the time, we were pretty far over budget, so we've kind of put that on the back burner for a possible future improvement.
Is there room there for it?
That's the question.
There's always room. You just matter what you have to,
Yeah.
what you have to take out to do it.
Right.
It's pretty tight, but, and, of course, things are going to get worse at that intersection with the ball fields going in. It's when the ball fields
Right.
come and go, it's going to be a problem.
Have you done a traffic study?
This is part of what they're going to do with this next design, is give us some more idea of how a roundabout might fit or work in that.
Well, no, there was also some discussion I remember about, and I don't know if this has anything to do with this, but changing the stop, who stops for who at that intersection during events, or
Oh,
maybe
Yeah, there could be a
temporary
switchable-
traffic revision or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
switchable, even a switchable signal, something to drain it.
Mhm.
Maybe something you guys want to look at, because, well, we'll see what kind of use that gets if it
Right.
starts bringing in large tournaments and such.
Yeah. To this point, we don't have any idea what the
My crystal ball's pretty
Additional-
muddy.
traffic will be, other than the players and
Yeah.
parents dropping them off. I don't know if if we're looking forward to tournaments that have 10,000 people in the stands or not, so. You're doing a 36-foot wide section
Yes.
because that is what we've been doing for years as we incrementally do Mountain View.
On Mountain View.
I hadn't warned you, but is current thinking 36 is enough for Mountain View?
Well, it certainly should be. Where we have,
It'll be better than what we've got.
yeah, and where we have turn lanes, it would be wider, but, yeah, it's good for now.
You're on your own. Les hadn't made a move. I've been watching
Good.
him, so
No, he's not.
you've got,
He's
this is
not
all
even
yours.
here.
No, I was just, I was doing in hindsight,
Yeah.
15 years ago, would you have set 36 as the width?
Unless you're going to add lanes, which
Well,
I
we're
think
at
that's way
45
down
on
the
White,
road.
aren't we?
Couldn't tell you that.
I think White's 45? 3 lane. And 3 lane.
Yeah. Someday it will be necessary.
Well, we don't
Well-
have that much mid-block traffic, turning traffic on Mountain View, I don't think. There are not that many driveways.
No.
Okay, yes, sir.
Just a clarification on some of the quotes on the monies. In the description, it says 2.58 million. Option D was at 2.65, and then there was another one that popped up with the finished cost of 2.97.
The 2.97 includes right-of-way and the design work. The 2.58 is construction only. So, and we don't actually have a number for that second design agreement. We kind of had a little sticker shock when we first went to put the agreement together for the total design. And so we said, wait a minute, and there were a lot of contingencies in there, so that's why we stopped it here. Like I say, the cost estimate has changed since the application, but it was due to the very fat section we had to go with, or so far we think we have to go with.
I guess the other question I have then is, I think that we need to make sure that we can still allow farm implement travel down
Oh,
through
sure.
there. Because that's been it's pretty big thoroughfare.
Yeah, and that would be absolutely no problem. We'll have the mountable, if we go with this roundabout, it'll be mountable, and you can get the largest truck through there.
Yeah.
Not mega
And
loads.
snow plows.
Yes.
And I would hope that the signage is not as aggressive as out at White Avenue.
Roundabout signage around the world is pretty busy.
Yeah, it's busy.
You need to sign it for people that need
Never
to be.
seen one.
Yeah.
I just hope they survive implement movement.
Oh, they will.
Okay.
Anything else?
I guess let's.
I'd like to move it
go
on
ahead
to
and move it forward.
council. Yeah,
I mean,
Kevin,
that
anything?
concept on.
we need to do something out there, and
Yes.
this is one of the first steps.
Okay, consent agenda, Gary?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Don't get up. Item 5, Southeast Lift Station Emergency Power Professional Services Agreement.
I don't have a presentation on this. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. We have hired, or no, we are trying to hire Trindera of Coeur d'Alene. They're an electrical engineering firm to spec out and inspect the installation of an emergency power system for the Southeast Lift Station.
Better known as Chinese Village,
No.
Southeast.
Oh, it's not, that is the Southeast. Yeah, out at
Oh, the one out on Palouse River Drive.
Sewer District 1, yes. There's currently no emergency power there, and if it was to go out, the water department sewer collections would have to take a portable generator out there. This would be a permanent weatherproof installation that would kick on. We're trying to get get emergency power for all of our lift stations in the system. So $6,000 agreement for the electrical engineer to spec out and assist with.
Is that in line with what we've paid to have this done before? Because I think we've hired firms
Yes,
to do this.
We've had AEI, I think, do a couple, and this was actually somewhat less than that, although
Okay.
we didn't use that. We're not able to use that to award it, but they're certainly qualified to do it, and it was pleasant to get a lower cost.
Okay. Questions?
We need to, like he says, have emergency power out there I'm glad we're,
This is in the budget, Gary, somewhere?
My understanding, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Number.
Okay, consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Les McDonald, item 6, Parkview Estates Addition Subdivision Development Agreement Amendment. Excuse me.
you're all right.
Any blood?
No, didn't draw blood. We're good.
Christine?
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you recall in our last council meeting, we had a lot line adjustment process regarding the remaining portion of Lot 1, Block 1 of the Parkview Estates subdivision. And one of the items that was the, main topic of conversation was dealing with some requirements pertaining to a traffic study, approval of a traffic study by ITD, and the timing of that traffic study with respect to the issuance of building permits on Lot 1, Block 1. And the council ultimately removed a proposed requirement on the lot division that addressed that issue of the timing of the traffic study and approved the lot division, or excuse me, the lot line adjustment, at that meeting last week. We also received a request from the council to bring forward a modification to 2 previous development agreements that specified the requirement for the traffic study and the timing of that traffic study with respect to issuance of building permits. So what's before you today is a modification to the latest agreement, development agreement. And this is something our legal department prepared, amendment to the development agreement, referencing, of course, this particular Lot 1, Block 1 of Parkview Estates. And the modifications are listed in the sections 2 and 5, wherein the paragraph from those original development agreements are included here. The modification is occurring about two-thirds of the way down, where it talks about make the improvements prior to the issuance of any building permits for Lot 1, Block 1 of the replat, with the exception of that certain .41 acre parcel located in the northwest corner of said lot created by City Council approval of lot line adjustment July 7, 2014. So the language that's added here is the exemption of that .41 acres for that Meineke lot in the northwest corner of Lot 1, Block 1, in both of these paragraphs. So it exempts that lot from having to have the traffic study approved by ITD prior to issuance of the building permits
But the whole,
on that lot.
the study is still
Study is
getting
still
completed.
required under the development agreements, and the developers have indicated they're continuing their efforts in that. So we're anticipating that will conclude.
Do we have,
this
I
year.
mean, it's been a week since we last talked about it. Do we have any more information as far as the progress of that traffic study?
I can't tell you if comments from the city have gone back yet. Kevin might be able to. I'm not sure.
I was looking at Scott, too, maybe. He knows.
Scott, I don't know if he's received them
Kevin's
yet.
indicating maybe not.
Nothing yet.
Okay, I think they probably received a copy of the ITD, but not the city yet, so they should have those soon.
Were the comments from ITD not a problem, dot an I across a T, or were they more than that?
In my opinion, they were more than that.
Okay.
There were some procedural issues that they brought forward, a few things regarding which manuals were being used. Some are more currently available, more current editions available that were not used. I believe there are going to be some discussions about some of the assumptions pertaining to future development of the remaining lot that's there and what type of development might occur. Scott referenced this actually last week about, is it a Safeway or is it a mini storage, for instance?
Right.
That has an impact, and that's part of what has to be
Because
sorted
the traffic
through.
study is an anticipatory document
Yes.
looking at what might go on the property, not what either is. Well, it includes what is.
It includes what
and
is.
what's known, but it also includes what's not, some kind of
It's
guess of what's
anticipated.
not known.
Right, what's anticipated, and then it has to project out 20 years typically to look at what that future traffic volume would be under a full build-out type condition, most typically. Normally, when you're looking at undeveloped land within a study area, you look at highest and best use of that based on the zoning. So in this case, we're looking at, I believe it's motor business zone, which could be something like a grocery store or things of that nature. If there's a desire to look at something less than that in the traffic study, then there probably would need to be some limitations set on development of that property that would address that. In the event that, in the future, something different than the traffic study comes into play, then you have to think about how to deal with that. So anyway, those are the types of things that we need to work our way through still. But this would allow the Meineke lot, the new lot on the northwest corner, to proceed through the building permit process.
And not be held up because of the traffic study.
For building permits, that's correct.
They have to jump all the other hoops, but not the traffic study.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Does the new agreement impact occupancy permits or anything like that down the road? Or is this just as far as the building permit?
This is actually silent on occupancy permits as it's written. It says that they can go ahead and get their building permits because that was the limitation, so that limitation has been removed. When it comes to occupancy permits, that could still be a checkpoint. because,
Except the development agreement does not call out occupancy permits.
So occupancy is not a criteria to have a traffic
it
study.
is not.
It's building
It's
permit.
issuance of building permits. So
And you're waiving, or you're asking
for that piece, we
that
would
we
waive
waive for the Meineke.
that. Right.
We've already,
So it probably wouldn't be a hindrance then in that case.
we've already waived for the 6 duplex lots on the east side
That is correct.
and for the piece that Moscow Building Supply purchased.
Purchase, they've not built anything upon it. they
Correct.
But they own it. Yes.
Does the building permit requirements apply for the Moscow Building Supply additional lot?
I'm not aware of any revisions that affect that south 200 feet. I think it was just the 600 feet on the east for the or the 6 lots on the east for the duplexes.
Bill, can you answer that?
Do you recall?
That limitation would still remain on the Moscow building.
I thought it did, yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't addressed.
At the time of replat, the lot line adjustment hadn't occurred, and so the development agreement was drafted to retain the traffic study requirement on the remainder of Lot 1, Block 1, which would have been the original lot, excluding the duplex lots, but it would have included the area that the Moscow Building Supply has purchased in the lot line adjustment.
Okay.
PAT is aware of that. I think the short-term use of the property is for parking, non-structure.
No building permit.
No building permit. And so, but that
Should there be one,
would apply.
Well, and G&G's traffic study could benefit Pat's, should he decide to, he doesn't have to get a separate traffic study once this one is completed, correct?
Well, this study has to include that property because
But
it's
it-
part of Lot 1, Block 1.
Right.
And part of the entire subdivision, which it needs to address.
Right.
I've got no problem agreeing to this with the stipulation that this can's getting pretty beat up being kicked down the road. And at some point, somebody's got to bite the bullet and get this done. And I really would like not to wait until we're down to the last 50 by 50 lot to be told there's not enough profit in this last lot sale for us to complete the study.
Well, the study's, I mean, it's in process. I mean,
Well, it doesn't.
It
But
is.
it's-
Yes,
get
but
finished.
is
Yes,
it
but no.
really?
Well, yeah. It is.
It's a study.
It's a study.
But it's apparently got some amount of yes, but attached to it, at least by ITD. The city will attach their own,
Yes. That's correct.
which may or may not be, we agree with ITD plus or something. Okay. Gary, you got any thoughts?
Well,
Other than the fact you guys are kicking it down the road, and if you want to, you've got the authority to do it, or what?
yeah, the good faith part of it is now that this lot is, if the council goes through with this action, they can go ahead and build on it and get their occupancy permit. As the council indicated at the last council meeting, you don't want this can to keep getting kicked down the road. So the developer's representative indicated that they will proceed in good faith to get it completed. So if the council chooses to take that assurance, great. I think you need to go into it with your eyes open, but I think the same concerns that you have are the ones that were voiced at the time this condition were put on the development agreement, and that is there has to be enough value in that development to pay for the signal if the signal is required.
Right.
So it's calculated risk. On the other hand, I don't know that this single lot is going to make that much difference, but then again, you get another lot down the road, is that one going to make that much
Exactly.
difference? I would say at some point,
Something
council
is.
needs to say nothing until this is done.
Right.
It'd be nice to be able to make that decision when you're not under the pressure of a developer who has earnest money and is ready to go right now.
So I'm reluctantly okay with it, but no mas.
We'll kick that can a little further.
Okay, consent agenda?
Yes, sir.
I trust the developer will hear our concerns. Okay, Les gets to keep his seat and talk to us about the Palouse Basin Aquifer Committee Management Plan update.
All right. This is an item you have seen before, actually twice for this particular group. This has to do with excuse me one second. Pardon me. This has to do with an update to the previously approved Moscow Action Plan that is part of the Groundwater Management Plan developed by the Palouse Basin Aquifer Committee back in 1992. This specific section of the groundwater plan addresses actions that the city would take starting back in 1992. As PBAC has looked at providing somewhat of an addendum that updates the status of the 92 plan in its recent work, we've been asked to provide an update to the action plan for the city of Moscow. So I actually wrote this up originally, and then it has come through Public Works Finance and also to City Council for review and comment. I had a few edits along the way. The item that you see in here now, which has the double bulleted section with the second bullet in color, is the summary that shows the original 92 version followed by the 2014 version number 2, which is the edited version shown in the blue if you printed it in color. Since this went through that process at the original Public Works Finance Committee meeting, we did receive some public input from one of our citizens, Nancy Cheney. That was presented, unfortunately, late to the council at the beginning of the topic at the last council meeting, so we were requested to continue it to here with the idea that we would take a look at the suggested modifications or additions provided by Ms. Cheney and decide if any further revisions to the 2014 version were necessary. So that's what's before you today.
I was the one that made the motion to table. I didn't feel that we could give any consideration of a document handed to us at the last moment, and as much as I would like to see this have moved on through, felt it only fair. I think I'm pretty sure, well, I know I made the comment at the time. We may or may not accept any of the suggestions, but we at least should have an opportunity to look at them.
Certainly. So I hope you've had a chance to take a look. There really were three parts to the submittal: an initial letter, cover letter, then a copy of the action plan with some additional comments added by Ms. Cheney, and then a copy of a portion of Pullman's comprehensive water system plan pertaining to conservation, which she had provided for some general reference to some of the good things that Pullman is doing. Having gone through this myself, taken a look at the suggestions, comparing them to the version 2, which came along after this was submitted by Ms. Cheney, my personal perspective is I believe that we've pretty well covered the things that she had addressed. There are a few things pertaining to more of a kind of a hard line with setting firm numbers. That I will leave to your discretion as to how you would like to approach those. But the other items about adding some language here and there pertaining to conservation in a little more detail, I think we've probably sufficiently covered them. There was some discussion about a little bit more regarding what should be in the conservation plan. My recommendation there would be to let the conservation plan address that. The fact that we've noted that, yes, we will have a conservation plan and move a program forward, I think is sufficient for this document, and then we'll let the conservation plan speak for itself with whatever types of programs, rebates, et cetera, that may come out of that discussion. And with that, I would not actually recommend any changes to the version 2, but willing to answer any questions you might have.
And the version 2 contains language regarding a toilet replacement rebate program, which we brought up several times at the budget workshop this morning. So that is already in there. I would tell you which bullet it is, but they're not numbered. So I'm looking at it in my version, but
I know it's in here.
Yeah,
It's about the fourth one down from the top.
First page.
Yeah.
Yeah,
looking at it.
formal conservation program.
Looking at it on the iPad, I can't tell him what page I'm on.
Well, and I guess we talk about a formal conservation program. Do we have a formal program even though we don't have a
We have a formal program in that the city has
This will have
been
this
been
comprehensive-
budgeting for conservation efforts, and
Right.
we have conservation staff that we've had in place now for, 7 years?
Right.
7 or 8 years. So we have a program. What we do not have is an official adopted conservation plan. That's the piece that's coming, and that would include the various, perhaps additional endeavors that we
this.
might want to include. Yeah. And so things like the additional water conservation, conserving devices, toilet rebate programs, other types of public outreach devices and rebate programs would all be included in that plan as the council decides to adopt versions.
And I believe there were some comments this morning at the budget workshop again from council members that indicated they were interested in seeing that
Yes.
move forward to us.
Yes.
Or move forward.
Yes, you're correct.
It's been
That's coming.
A long time.
years, I think you said this morning.
It was years, yes.
All right.
Yeah, I think other than some differences in exact language, what's here in the amended version versus what was submitted by Nancy are pretty much equivalent, with the one exception of harder language relative to pumping limits. And I'm not sure harder language would fly here at this point. And other than that, I think all of the other points were well covered in this.
So you see,
I see no need to change version 2 because I think it pretty much reflects what was suggested in the submitted letter.
I agree with Art. And as the fact that we are working on a plan, I hope to see it sooner rather than later so it can be included in this. It'd be, I don't know where we're at on it, but it'd be something that would be nice to see before perhaps the next water summit.
The second draft is on my desk, that's what I'm going through now.
you didn't say that because you were looking at Paul
I
Kemp.
looked at him when I said it, but
Perhaps-
his cohort was here last time, so I guess it was his turn today, so.
Perhaps they can delay the water summit then.
Okay.
Just
That would be helpful.
Okay, all right, so
I'm okay with forwarding it.
move this through and put it on consent?
yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. We're up
Number
to-
8.
We're up to item last.
She's waiting patiently.
Lisa, I am a little bit disappointed you only have one item today for us, because you're usually better than the engineers at
We got her
having-
this morning, too, remember?
Yeah, we had her this morning, too, but having multiple items on our agenda. Welcome.
Start and finish our day.
Letters of Opportunity Grant.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
This is a new announcement that came out about 2 weeks ago, and basically it's an accumulation of 5309 funds that weren't used by entities, and so they've grouped it all together. There's $100 million available. They anticipate doing approximately 100 awards statewide. We will need to submit nationwide, and we will need to submit our application with a compilation of other agencies throughout the state, and ITD will submit it. Right now, at this time, we're working with engineering, and we've identified 4 to 5 locations where bus shelters are needed. We're working with Jenny at SMART and looking at the ridership levels for some of the stops. We have identified that Egan and Mountain View is one stop that we've had several requests for with high ridership. And we also,
I'm sorry, where was it?
Egan and, Mountain View and D, where Egan is.
I kept thinking, I
Yeah.
wasn't
that
sure
new
we had an
street.
Egan Street.
Egan Street.
Egan Street. Excuse me. We also are at a point where we need to retire the 15-passenger van and look
Is that
at,
because it's worn out?
it's getting there.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's been used.
It will still be safe enough for Parks and Rec to take some shorter trips in it, but to continue going the round-trip miles to Lewiston every day, it's probably getting close to its retirement age. So we've been able to cost out through the fleet department 2 new 12-passenger vans at approximately $35,000 apiece. We would replace the one 15-passenger, and most likely start another route going from Lewiston back to Moscow on a new 12-passenger, and then we may take one of the smaller vans and start a new route from Potlatch to Moscow. Jen's got a waiting list going for a couple different routes, and so we'll take a look at that if we're awarded and see where the most need is.
I hate to interrupt you. Gary, speaking of vans,
Yes.
how does this fit in with the 2015 budget regarding vans?
If we receive the grant, which we should know.
Well, you probably need to state what the budget does. What's
The
in
budget has a replacement of the 15-passenger, well, with the 12-passenger van at this point, with funds that we have accumulated from user fees. If we're able to obtain this grant, there is a match requirement, which we can then use those funds for match for that, the 2 new vans.
So were this to be successful,
2 vans, not 3.
okay, so we wouldn't be adding on, we would be
We'd be adding one.
adding one and
and
funding
replacing one.
and backfilling the funding in the 2015 budget for one.
Yes.
Got it.
We have enough funding reserved to cover the match for 2 vans.
Okay.
Make sense? Okay. Match is 20% on these grants, except for facilities that do improvements for bike users.
How many?
It's 10%.
Do you know how many bus shelters we have erected at this time, and how many
11.
bus stops we have?
We have 11 shelters at this time, and I think we have like 32 stops. That's just an estimate off of what I've got
So we've
here.
got about a third of our stops sheltered.
Mhm.
Okay. Had no idea. I see the shelters, but I don't necessarily see just the stops.
So this is pretty wide open as far as what you could use it for.
Yes. Well, no,
I mean,
more specifically, it's
for
focused at...
transit, but
Right. It needs to be on a public transit route, or it needs to be assisting people in getting to work or to community services or vital services.
so that's where the van pool comes in.
It says funds can be used to purchase, replace, or rehabilitate transit buses and vans, as well as to modernize or construct bus facilities, and I'll skip to in rural communities. Competitive proposals must also directly address ladders of opportunity for riders, including enhancing access to work, supporting economic development opportunities, and supporting partnerships and coordinating planning. So it's kind of a wide focus there. It also has a specific purpose that says the access for bicycles to public transportation facilities, shelters, and/or parking facilities for bicycles in or around transportation requires only a 10% match. So,
We could add bike racks at some of the shelters that don't have them.
well, actually, we're looking at constructing a covered bike parking shelter, possibly in the Jackson Street parking lot. We've already have some areas where we have uncovered bike racks. We're looking at maybe taking one more parking slip, but moving it closer to the Friendship Square area and doing a covered bike parking shelter. That would look similar, or would have the same roof design. It wouldn't have the glass walls on it necessarily, but it would have the roof and an enclosed area for covered bike parking, which is something that has been brought forth on several different occasions in the past. We just haven't found the right grant for it, and this is actually a perfect
And here it is.
opportunity. Yes.
So we're looking for 4 things. The 2 vans, some new shelters, covered bike parking, and sharrows.
Yes. Yes.
And it seems like, is this 4 separate applications, or you're able to put this
No.
all on one application?
It will be 2 applications. The vans will be 1 application, and then the rest of it will be a combined application.
Those are bike related, they get That's
Well-
the separate, the other match?
The other would be more in the
Percent.
construction type field, and then the vans would be separate, and we may be able to purchase those vans on a state contract, depending upon what other vendors are doing. We anticipate that this application would not exceed $250,000.
And how much was available?
There-
Nationwide, I guess?
There is $100 million
Okay.
available. There is specific allocations for rural areas.
Not a specific for the state of Idaho.
No, but a majority of
Northwest.
Idaho is rural.
Right, right.
Yeah, so,
We're competing nationwide again.
yes, we are.
We've been pretty
We're not shooting the
successful.
moon, so we might get a pretty good chance.
So, in the past, when the state has done a compiled application, we haven't really had a strong request before, but this one is much stronger than what we've had in the past. So I think it's a good.
So we're going to be in the mix with whatever Coeur d'Alene and Boise and
Yes.
Portofino or whoever. but-
Southwest Kentucky mountains.
Well, no, there's an Idaho application is what you're saying.
Yes.
Oh.
ITD will be submitting an application on behalf of all of Idaho.
Oh, okay.
However,
Sorry.
the MPOs will need to submit their own application directly. So the applications that Idaho will be submitting will be for rural areas only. So that's why I think it's a strong application
Okay.
coming in,
And we're rural.
and we are. We are. So,
You're looking for approval to proceed?
yes, I am.
And we're thinking it could be up to 250,000. So what would our total match be, do you think? I mean, you've
Well-
got two different percentages there.
Somewhere
so-
between 25 and 50,000.
It's going to be a combination because some of it's only going to have a 10% match, and we already have the match in the budget for the vans, and we also have some flexibility for improvements to the transit routes and several of the capital
Well, if it was
projects
20%
budget
across the
items.
board, I guess, then we wouldn't be over 50,000. So
Correct. Correct.
37.5, maybe.
I'll hold you to that.
Sounds like a
All right.
good way to stretch the budget into some very good returns on it that we couldn't
Absolutely.
otherwise manage.
Yes.
It's an interesting find that, these grants pop up and are, well, I can't even think of a good adjective. There's not one good enough, I guess.
Lisa goes home at night, and while she's watching TV, she peruses the internet looking for grant opportunities.
Actually, we had been told about a year ago that there was some 5309 money that didn't get expended, but we had no idea what they were going to do with it. And so it finally came forth, and so.
And you don't ask us to allow grants to be written that you don't believe you have a chance to get. I
Not
know you
usually.
cannot agree, I know you cannot guarantee.
There are some times I have came forth with ones that I didn't have a great feeling that it would be
That
funded.
was just because Gary told you to do it anyway.
No, not necessarily. I'm pretty honest in saying this is going to be a tough one to fund, or I think we have a good chance.
We'll give it a whirl, huh?
So,
But
yeah.
this one sounds like a pretty good chance then, huh?
I like it.
Consent?
You bet.
All for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything
Lisa.
else for the good of the order, sir?
I have nothing.
Well, I'm shocked and amazed.
You did a good job, sir.
I don't know that I
59
did
minutes.
anything. Okay.
We're adjourned?
We are adjourned.